The reason I'm here is about 10 years ago, at a cafe not too far from here, I was seated with a work acquaintance of mine, and he kind of leaned in and he said quietly, as we were midway through our conversation, 3 words: I've been restructured. Now we know what restructuring means. Very often it means loss of jobs, disruption to the organization. We spent the morning talking about a new world order and disruption of what it means to business. In this session, I'm going to translate what that means into the world of work and make this very personal for each of us here. But in order to talk about the future, it's sometimes instructive to take a page from the past and look at how work has evolved. So let me take you back to Singapore in the 1930s. Now, Singapore at that time was essentially fishing villages, mangrove swamps, coconut and rubber plantations, country roads. But in the midst of that, there were tall buildings, motor vehicles, and the busiest trolley system at the time. In spite of all this modernity, Singapore had its challenges. For example, poor sanitation, water supply problems, opium dens, which you see in the image behind me, and the occasional tiger. Speaking of tigers, right here at the Raffles Hotel in 1902, the very last tiger in Singapore was shot. So I think we're pretty happy that we weren't here to witness that. But of course, if you were here at the Raffles Hotel at that time, you'd have seen that it was promoted as being facing the harbor, lit by electricity, and with fans in all public areas. A luxury indeed. And in fact, if you were sitting right here in this room not too long ago, you would have been in the Jubilee Hall seated in one of these chairs such as that. But I digress. In 1930s, work in Singapore might have involved backbreaking construction work. It might have involved loading and unloading cargo from boats off the Singapore River. It might have involved riding a rickshaw. In any case, work in Singapore at that point in time did not differ too much from work in other parts of the world. And it's in that context that I take you to John Maynard Keynes, British economist, philosopher, statesman. And in 1930, he was trying to cast his eye out 100 years to determine what life would look like in the year 2030, which is by now just around the corner. And he wrote an essay, The Economic Possibilities for Our Grandchildren, where he was really trying to predict what work and life would look like. And he forecasted that because there had not been a tremendous amount of technology up until that point in time, in 2030, with the advance of technology, we would see significant technological unemployment because we would actually have solved the economic problem of its time, which is that of subsistence. So he forecast that we would be working 3-hour days, 5-day work weeks, 15-hour weeks, and that we would in fact be at a standard of living that was 4 to 8 times that in 1930. Let's just do a quick poll here to get a sense of how much you think you're working, right? So compared to 5 years ago, would you say you're working more than before, the same, or less? So ABC, more than before, less than before, or about the same. So let's take a quick look at your responses. Get the full responses up. You can take a quick look at how you're rating. Very overwhelmingly, you feel that you're working more than before. Well, this is a fairly cohesive group. Now, I'd like to be that 11.76% that's working less than before, because actually the data shows that in time, we are actually working less than before. So when I throw this chart up, usually somebody in the audience says, well, but that's European data. You know, those Europeans. Because this is going from 1870s to modern times. And you would see that what this actually shows is that people are working shorter hours. So let's take a look at a bit more broad geography. And actually what you see is that there's a correlation between GDP per capita and the number of hours worked, which is, as GDP per capita increases, the number of hours worked decreases, unless, of course, you're insane. We are an outlier for lots of reasons. So I'll leave you to ponder that for now. Nevertheless, when you think about how work has changed over time, it sometimes creeps up upon us very, very quickly. And I want to give you an example. Easter Parade, New York City, 1900. Take a look at this image, and what you see is horses and buggies everywhere. If you look really, really closely, you'll see that there's actually one car, one motor vehicle. So I suppose, you really couldn't blame this British MP for saying that he didn't really think that the introduction of motor vehicles was ever going to disrupt the riding of horses. However, only 13 years later, same Easter Parade, same Fifth Avenue, New York City, and all the horses and buggies have all but disappeared, leaving only motor cars in about the span of a decade. And that is how disruption creeps up upon us, and that is how jobs get disrupted. Let me give you an example of how technology change is increasing at a rapid rate. So let's do a quick snap quiz here. Telephone. How long do you think it took the telephone to reach 50 million users? Any guesses? From anywhere in the room? How many years?
20 years.
20 years? Do I hear 25? 100 years? Well, the answer is somewhere in the middle. It actually took 75 years for a telephone to reach 50 million users. How about the radio? Yes, this is a radio, ladies and gentlemen. How long did a radio take to reach 50 million users? What do you think?
50.
50 is getting closer, 38 years. Now we move to the television, albeit a rather retro one. How long would a TV have taken to reach 50 million users? You're getting the pattern here. 13 years. Okay, now some of you recognize this. Oh, many of you recognize it. I can usually tell the demographic of the room. Okay, so how long did the Walkman take to reach 50 million users? Oh, you guys are starting to anchor down now. It's 10 years to reach 50 million users. And then we keep going to the internet. 4 years. iPods. 3 years. So as technology has increased in terms of its computing power, we're seeing a compression in terms of the amount of time that it takes for ideas, products, technology to get out there in the world. Now, I want you to take a look at this and then spend 10 seconds after that with your neighbor discussing, number one, where this took place, and number two, what's going on.